I had a question for you all. Is web development recession proof? And this is what the title of the episode right now, working title, we may change it. However, the question remains. And the reason why that question remains is it was actually inspired by something that's not web development related at all. So I listened to the Game Scoop podcast. It's an IGN podcast. And that I have not listened to that episode yet, but the episode that's coming up in my personal queue is something about is game development or are games still recession proof or something like that. And that got me thinking, the things being recession proof, things being recession oriented is definitely going to be on people's minds. We've talked about the job market absolutely to death, but I thought it would be good to sort of maybe take a deep dive and have a conversation on what you can do to potentially make yourself recession proof or at least mitigate some of the effects of a recession. You could actually install some of your own recession safety nets is what I'm calling them, which we will talk about later in the episode. There's also going to be a section about when an economic downturn happens, what opportunities come up, because as one door closes another door opens, cliche but actually true. And then we're also going to be talking about different types of recessions and their impact, including ones that affect certain regions or is it global, etc. So that's going to be this week's episode. And if this sounds interesting to you and you want to support the show, you can go check us out on that Patreon, leave a review or rating on your podcast app. Join us in our Discord server or share this with your friends. And if you want to help not only us, but yourself as well, you want to net some courses, you want to net some coding skills, you can do so by getting up to 20% off a Scrimba Pro plan. You can find that link in the show description and the show notes, full details in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. And last but not least, we remember that we are powered by Code Rabbit. They give you the power of AI code reviews to help cut your code review time in half. Check out the link in the show notes and episode description to net yourself a 14-day free trial, no credit card needed, and just a 2-click sign up with a GitHub or GitLab account. And so we're on to the very first section of this episode to sort of establish things, and then I will let Mike speak in 30 to 40 minutes. No, again, so the different types of recessions and their impact. So this is not, I want to be clear, I'm not an economist. I've done a little bit of research. And I mean a little bit of research because the economy, you could study it for years, right? You go to school to be an economist kind of thing. There's lots to learn, but I've broken down the different types of recessions that I think will affect web developers the most into 3 categories. And those include a tech recession, regional recessions, as well as a global downturn or a global recession or a global financial crisis, as the news likes to say. We're going to start with tech recessions. So when hiring freezes or layoffs hit Silicon Valley or major tech companies, or if the market is affected in some way, like, hey, we don't want phones anymore, and then, the consumers don't want that, and then boom, you got a tech recession. Unfortunately, this actually will affect web developers quite a lot. The Reddit thread, and I actually have a few Reddit threads that I've referred to in this episode, and I will link those as well in the show notes. But the Reddit thread on the tech job recession highlights that even solid developers may face longer job searches, tougher interviews, as well as layoffs. And I 100% agree with that, with the Reddit thread that I'm referring to. So the thing is that this is just sort of like a almost a classic recession, if you will, where like there's an economic downturn and you're likely to get laid off. You're likely to get laid off. There's going to be opportunities, of course. There's going to be some industries that aren't touched, but this is going to be like, hey, there's an issue in your industry, and therefore there is a high likelihood that you're going to get laid off. There's a high likelihood there's going to be a lot of candidates, and there's going to be a high likelihood that interviews are going to get harder to actually get, and then potentially actually take once you're given them. The interview steps might be like, hey, go home and take this 900,000 hour project home and do it for us, because I know that, all 12,000 of you that applied will do it. Tech recessions are serious.
I think like a dot com bubble would fit under a tech recession, right? Like,
I
yeah,
agree.
like,
Yep.
and then potentially as we progress, there was quite a few different bubbles. I think .com was just one of the biggest. Maybe right now the COVID bubble could technically be viewed as a tech recession because of the fact that the tech industry is the one that blew up the most during the COVID bubble. And then there was an interview with Sam Altman recently where he even admitted that we're in a AI bubble. Now, like we're in a bubble where the fact that AI jobs are going up, other jobs are kind of in recession a little bit. I don't know the exact definition of recession in terms of like what you can call recession or not. I think there is a very clear definition. I'm not sure if we hit that yet, but regardless, there seems to be maybe the AI bubble bursting at some point as well to look at it. There's always a bubble to burst. I think that's the goal here. Like before, maybe it was the crypto bubble. That was a smaller one. Obviously, it was a very niche thing even during its peak. But you're always looking ahead at like the next bubble bursting. I do want to say that like that is a little bit of fear mongering as well, and a lot. I think we'll talk about this throughout this episode. It's like people speaking about recessions on a constant basis. I think the first time I heard recessions being mentioned was when I was like probably 15. And obviously we've had, one major one in our lifetime, right? Or I'm not sure.
One major one in our
Yeah.
lifetime, and there was one shortly before our
Yeah,
lifetime.
that's it. Exactly. So like
So Mike and I were born in the like late 80s, early
correct,
90s,
exactly.
just to give people some context.
Exactly. So like I think people talk about recessions. They don't like actual recessions don't happen that often, but these smaller ones do happen every once in a while, and but they can course correct pretty quickly. So I'm just saying that not to freak people out. Like I think people just constantly fear monger on recessions and stop people from moving on with their lives and going into industries.
Well, there's money in doing
Yeah.
that, right? Like there's money in recessions, like which sounds ridiculous. So like we're going to talk about some of the opportunities, but there's money in talking about recessions as well. Is kind of what you're getting at, where it's like somebody if somebody comes out and like they're a trusted influencer and they're like, hey, like there's a high likelihood of a recession, like they'll likely get listened to. Now, I do want to say something is that they're not necessarily lying. We dodge recessions and we dodge economic bullets, figurative bullets, all the time. Like if the government comes in and goes like I'm subsidizing this, immediately that industry might course correct. If a sudden boom in demand shows up, that can course correct. Like our economy is not perfect. Our economy doesn't go like what we'll do is we'll have a slow ramp up and then a slow ramp down. Hence the bubbles. Hence the dodging of these figurative bullets. It happens, and that leads me perfectly into the next type of recession, which is a regional recession. So this is a slowdown in a local economy that might mean maybe fewer clients if you're a freelancer, or fewer clients for a business that you may work for, like an agency or things like that. There may be less businesses or just less entrepreneurs that would be willing to invest in new websites or web apps, which is unfortunate. And this is something where, again, this is a regional recession. So the global economy may remain strong, but you may have some downturn. And I mean, I'll give an example. There is a local software company that deals with virtually every golf course I go to, minus like two or three, and I go to quite a bit. And there's many more in their roster. They're a local company. That would be an example because they have a web app. That would be an example of a company that would be affected by a regional recession. Where if like people stopped golfing and they're like, hey, I don't need this like fancy software anymore, then that company gets affected. Even if the web dev industry is going, gangbusters and everyone has jobs and there's money everywhere in tech, that would be something that affects them, right? And that's also kind of like a two-tiered thing because you have to think it affects the golf course and then it affects the web developers that are local. So again, this is like a lot of this like recession stuff, a lot of this economy stuff. Of course, everything's kind of interconnected, and like that's one example of the interconnectivity. I'll give you another example that one I experienced myself. Waterloo, it was known, maybe still is, but I don't think it is, as known as the Silicon Valley of Ontario, which is the province we live in Canada. I used to work there. I used to work at BlackBerry. BlackBerry owned a lot of buildings there, over 20 buildings there. They were all over the place, owned, leased, whatever. I don't know all the details. The point is, they owned a lot of buildings there, and obviously they had relationships with the university there. It was a huge tech company. It was like top of their game. They were one of the top three smartphones globally, and then they fall apart largely. Now they're still alive to some extent and whatever, but they're no longer, the number three, number two, number one smartphone manufacturer. So of course, that's going to affect a lot of users, or excuse me, a lot of people regionally. That's going to affect people's career paths that are coming out of college because they might be like, "Oh, I'm at the University of Waterloo. Like, I'll go work at BlackBerry. That sounds super cool." And they're like literally next door to each other. That might be kiboshed. You're going to have countless people that are going to be laid off there, of course, because like there's a bunch of people working there because there's over 20 buildings, so someone's working in there. unfortunate. And like, again, like I experienced that firsthand. So that's another example of a regional layoff due to a global change, due to like people going to iPhones and Androids and things like that, among other things. Yes, I know. But the point is that that's an example of a regional economic downturn. And again, like maybe not a recession, like maybe it wasn't enough to say like, oh, this is like a formal recession. But for you, like if you were in it, you're like, oh my God. Like, that there were so many job opportunities, these so many tech opportunities here. And I don't know the details of this, but like, of course, if one tech company is in the area and they're massive, they're obviously contracting stuff out to other tech companies. And so what other companies were affected by this ripple effect? How many people where one spouse worked at BlackBerry, another one worked at some random IT firm that had nothing to do with them? BlackBerry closes, that person maybe was like the main breadwinner or whatever. So they go, okay, I have to move somewhere else. So now that other IT company gets screwed over because that other employee, this the other spouse, gets taken with the other spouse to go to another city or town. Now that talent's leaving. Now the talent pool is affected. And so that's an example of a regional recession as well, where there's that interconnectivity where like the talent pool is affected, the money's affected, the employment obviously is affected. Whether it's considered a formal recession or not, you decide, or an economist can decide that, but it is, recession like at the very least. And again, that's one of the ones that I've experienced. And I'm sure there's been many, many others. I'm sure wars mess things up a lot for regional recession, all kinds of stuff, natural disasters, shipping issues where it's like, hey, we can't get down this canal, we can't get to you, you're screwed, things like that, regional recessions. And and then I'll just like tackle the third one here and then we can discuss it. And then the other one is obviously the bigger version of this, global downturn. This is what we saw in 2008. This is what I think I was in high school at the time. Mike was, I think, in high school as well at the same time. Because I can't remember if it happened like early or late in my high school. I don't really remember. But regardless, because high school here is only 4 years for anyone who's in like a different region. But like all our teachers were like, stay in school as long as you can, stay in post-secondary, do a victory lap, stay in school, like insulate yourself from this recession. Cause they're like, you're literally gonna go into a terrible job market. They're like, if your parents are like hanging in, let them hang in, you do your thing, and everyone just like basically hang on because we're in trouble. Detroit got absolutely decimated as far as I know from that recession. They had massive auto issues, like because they're the auto city, motor city, whatever. They had huge problems. Like I'm pretty sure I've seen YouTube videos, accurate or not, that they are still experiencing issues. Like people were buying houses for $30 for a house because it was just like, why the hell would you want to buy it there? Like it was chaos there, right? And it maybe $30 is an exaggeration, I don't know, but it was cheap. Like it was not like 40 grand or something. It was cheap, very, very cheap. And so that's an example of a global downturn where, the world's largest economy, US, takes a huge hit and unfortunately drags a whole bunch of other people down with it as well. Obviously, there's a bit of regional stuff there. Canada was actually not hit too bad because our banks are so restrictive and they're so regulated and they're so whatever. And at least that's what I always heard. And we were able to like sort of sustain ourselves. However, the like status quo goes down, right? Where it's like, hey, we're getting pulled down, but we didn't get pulled down as far. Like that's that's our win. So that's an example of an economic downturn. And unfortunately, you will in both these cases likely get laid off, or there will be something that you get affected by as a web developer. Global downturn, everyone's getting hurt, so it's going to be really challenging to even change careers. And then a regional one, you may be forced to move, you may be forced to try to find remote work. You understand the implications of it, but basically, like, it's not good, and all these things can affect you.
Yes, I do want to kind of not devil's advocate, but could just put a thing here that like not everyone will get laid off. Obviously,
Correct.
it'll be a larger percentage than the before times, but the reality is a lot of people still, need to be there to do work for a lot of these large companies, so they'll keep a lot of people on. If you're one of the unlucky ones to get laid off, that sucks, obviously, but just don't, as soon as you hear the word recession, don't be like, oh, that's it, I'm done. I guess I should quit now. I have this like weird association with recession and panic. And what I don't want
Of
because
course.
I mean, I understand that association, but I have seen people that panic in the wrong direction, even though they're in a decent spot, and then I kind of screw themselves out of opportunities due to panicking. So I think it's important to take a deep breath and be like, okay, the world's seen a lot of recessions. We are better now as a world, or as governments go about like what Matt was saying, not bailouts, but like preventing recessions or mitigating the recession or having like a slow, like an easier fall. We understand the triggers we can, the stuff that we can pull to make it easier. So the sky won't probably be falling, but the reality is, yeah, like it can be very difficult. I don't know what you would classify the times that we're in now, Matt, because I know like I think that's what a lot of this is leading to is like we're in, I don't know if we're in a recession, but we're in like a post, COVID like downturn, I would say. So maybe something like that. Like, the boom that COVID brought is now being mitigated or corrected for, and then maybe a little bit below that. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the numbers
Right.
recently, but it is important to kind of like know where you're at. Like, what's the baseline? Because the other part of this is that if you go on sites like Reddit, and we've had this conversation recently on one of the podcast episodes, you're mostly only going to see negative connotations about what's going on in the market. Now, a lot of times, regardless of how the market is doing, that's going to be the case because the negative voices rise to the top, and the negative voices are also the ones that want to share something, whereas the positive voices are just, heads down working. They don't really care about sharing how, like, oh, they have a job, or the ones that find a job real quickly are just focused on, working or getting used to their job. So the noise that you see online isn't necessarily directly correlated to the actual situation. It is loosely correlated because obviously the more noise, the more people are around to make that noise. But I'm trying to bring people down to realities. Like, yes, you could still get a job in the web development industry. Yes, it's harder than during COVID. It's always been kind of hard. Like it's never been that easy to break in. You always have to kind of do these weird things of like creating a portfolio and knowing your shit and being able to talk about yourself really well and applying to a million jobs. Like that's been the standard from when we started all the way up until I would say like the COVID boom. And then the COVID boom brought with it like those boot camps that all of a sudden had a direct path to work, and that shifted things a little bit, or expectations kind of changed. And then now we're going back to like, okay, this industry is kind of hard. And one thing I saw recently, I can't remember where, but like someone was saying like, yes, it's hard, but think about the job that you're doing. Like, where else can you get a job that pays, six figures for the most part in average, air conditioned, more chances at remote, and you're solving hard problems that are interesting most of the time, right? Like the benefits of the job are still pretty high in terms of like what it is. And so it's, yes, it's harder to break in, but the benefits are still pretty high. So like it's just kind of correlating, it's correcting itself to be what it always was, which is like a difficult career to break into.
It's a good question. Like your initial question on like where we're at, and it's like I mean I want to say if anything, it's more of a tech recession. Like it's not a global downturn. It's not necessarily a regional recession. I know there's other economists that are like, complaining about like just a recession in general. That's up for them to decide. But you also make a very good point in like, hey, this is coming back to like reality. Like tech, like web dev and a lot of other tech jobs that were related to it kind of had this huge boom. People were freaking out trying to get tech talent like crazy. Now that demand, which was already an anomaly, that demand is gone. And so we have the fallout of that. Like whether it's gone beyond that, I don't know. I will say that like it feels like a tech recession. Whether or not I would call it that, I would need to like do some like actual data and be like, oh, Microsoft is just like getting rid of a bunch of people, even the people that that had been hired there for years and years and years. Obviously, there's some examples of that, but I mean en masse, and I don't mean just Microsoft. Like a bunch of the FANG companies, things like that. I think like those like I would need a bunch of numbers and likely from FANG and likely from other sources to sort of decide. And and like again, like I'm not an economist, whether they consider that COVID stuff not an anomaly and they consider it growth and that they decided that like, oh, we should always have that and we should just keep growing from that point. But like obviously like reality set in and like that's not what happens. It's a little bit messy. But one of the things actually that I'm going to say that's positive, and it's actually the next thing I wanted to talk about, is the cross industry nature of tech, which is messy, but also opportunistic. So we've talked about recessions a lot, and that's like, like Mike said, it gets people panicking for sure, but tech touches nearly everything. So therefore, there's opportunities all over the place. And whether it's easy or hard to get a job, the point is that there's a good chance that something somewhere will be hiring for some reason. So just think about what tech touches. It touches healthcare, it touches logistics like trucking and things like that. It touches e-commerce, it touches education, entertainment, of course. It touches government services, whether that's literally IT internally, whether that's them making websites, whether that, a whole bunch of different things, right? So if we think about this, a recession may affect something, like it may affect e-commerce. For some reason, e-commerce just goes down the tubes. Okay. But if your government is funding education and they're doing a big education push to like revitalize their education services or whatever, right? They're re-putting in their high schools and stuff. Do they not need tech workers to do all the planning, implementation, and maintenance of that? Well, yeah, right. So that's an opportunity, right? Like if you like take the on the outset, it's like, oh my god, e-commerce is going down. What do we do? But then it's like, yeah, but education's going up, right? Now, obviously, again, our economy is messy, and it's not one to one. It's not like we lost one e-commerce job and then we gained one education job. It could be very lopsided in a good or bad way, for sure. But like think about it, like during a retail downturn, even like if we look at something like a lot of the stores that we see in malls, at least here in Canada, like malls are kind of dying out. We see that in America and a lot of places as well. And a lot of these malls have stores that have a physical presence, obviously, in the mall, but they also have a digital presence, right? So they have a lot of tech workers and things like that. But it hinges sometimes, actually, oftentimes, on the like the digital experience where people can order online and things like that. That hinges on the how well the actual retail physical brick and mortar locations do. So you may have a downturn in which like, this huge company that had a huge tech team, but also like a huge like retail team falls apart because no one's going to these malls and their business model was all like physical and brick and mortar and they don't know what to do. You might see a major downturn and say like that, oh my God, 1,000 tech workers got laid off. But then you might see like healthcare suddenly get an investment from somewhere where they're just like, Canada's like our healthcare, I don't know, our healthcare sucks. We're going to upgrade it or something, right? That happens. New politicians, they decide to do like a big project and then that sees like 1,000 tech workers. So like, and one retail store closes, there's the door closed, the next door opens, maybe it's healthcare. That's just an example of something, right? And developers are able to pivot because like the same tech or similar tech powers these different things. And I will say that there's a particular need really in situations like this for developers that are good at pivoting. There's a guest episode that we have coming up, which may or may not be out by the time you listen to this, but we had a discussion on how this guy he had spoken to like a couple of like people that had basically like just stayed stagnant in their careers. Like they didn't even build any personal projects. Like they were just like, oh, I maintain this old like jQuery library thing or this old project, and I just know like a certain old version of jQuery. Pays the bills and everything's great, but then all of a sudden there's an economic downturn, and that particular business gets kiboshed, gets screwed over. That guy gets laid off. It's like, well, what's his skills now? So he can't pivot easily, right? But a lot of devs, especially ones that job hop, a lot of them do have a lot of skills, or a lot of them who maybe don't job hop but do a lot of research on the side or do some side hustles, do some things like that. They obviously are able to pivot really, really quickly. And on Reddit, again, one of the threads that we were and that I used in my research, somebody had mentioned that while FANG jobs might dry up, which is something that a lot of people look toward, for the kind of the health of the tech industry for good reason, but it's not an absolute. And the point is, while FANG jobs might dry up, smaller companies in traditional industries may still desperately need developers. Like if there's a whole like country or something that is still using paper for their accounting and some law changes where it's like these got to be digital now, that's going to be a huge opportunity for anybody who knows like data entry, data handling, accounting systems, things like that. And that's huge. And that's not in FANG. Like that's an accounting office. That's not in FANG.
It's an interesting. We've talked about this quite a few times, right? Like the fact that there are tech jobs outside of the tech space, and it's super important to understand that. Like, and a lot of them are really good jobs because they're very much like they're more traditional in the sense of like there's less overlap with work and home because that's how those traditional jobs are and stuff like that. Like healthcare is a little bit like that, where they do have these boundaries that they put in place, right? And same with like the auto industry has these boundaries that you put in place where you sometimes you don't have to take work home with you, whereas in tech, it's kind of the Wild West and everyone, everyone's expected to work almost all the time. So there's a lot of benefits, side benefits of like looking at this market when you're looking for a job, right? Yes, it's not maybe not as prestigious as having a FANG on your resume, right? But it's something that is definitely relevant experience, and most hiring managers don't care that you have a FANG on your resume, and in some cases it can actually hurt you. Just these are side like edge cases, but like sometimes people don't want to hire from FANG due to the fact that there's certain like types of workers that come from there, very rigid, set in their ways, kind of stuff like that. Whereas if you hire from other industries, it's a little bit easier to mold them into what they need to be. But that again, those are edge cases. It's still probably better to have a FANG job than not on your resume. But regardless, like it is an important aspect even outside of a recession is what I'm trying to say, right? Like it's something you should actively look at if you're in that position. And if you're in a position where you've been laid off, it's definitely an important step. Like just looking at tech companies is a very limited scope, and it's yeah,
Very
and
limited.
it's
Yeah.
it's a pretty small vertical too. Like tech is a very small vertical compared to all of these under industries. Obviously, it's growing like crazy, but regardless, like all these under industries are way more established, and they just have a ton of jobs, and that's probably not going to change anytime soon either. The other aspect of this is like people are afraid AI is going to take your jobs. Not really recession related, but could cause some sort of tech recession in the future if it's the case. Now, one industry or what industries that won't be adapting that right away are more traditional industries. They take a long time to shift to these new technical standards. And the fact that AI is just, appearing right now and people are using it in the tech space and some, tech CEOs are all adamant about firing people. You're not hearing that from, the traditional CEOs of like healthcare and auto industry and Walmart and stuff like that. Like you're not hearing the big CEOs of these massive corporations outside of tech talking about replacing their developers because they're waiting to see how it plays out. They've seen tech go in a million different directions, and they've made the mistakes enough times that they're like, we're gonna just wait, see if this is a real thing, and it might take them 10 years because again, they're looking at a scope of 100 years ahead. They're not looking at the next 5 years. Some of these companies are century companies, and they don't care about like being the first to adopt it. They want to adopt it correctly and safely and all that. So that's going to happen during this AI craze where a lot of companies will be like, no, 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 we're not doing that. And we're going to wait it out. And we're going to, not, some companies might not even allow you to use AI internally, right? To write code at all. And that like, that might suck a little bit, but that's where they're at. A lot of these companies, they're afraid of this stuff. And in some cases, like it's a good thing.
Well, I mean, especially like if I immediately think about, an industry that is really like important. I mean, healthcare. Like, could you imagine, worrying about whether or not you should like lay off developers and like, worry about AI, this and that. Like they're worried about, hey, we need enough techs here to install, maintain, repair the technology we have. Our business is healthcare. Our business is not tech. Tech is in our business. Tech supports our business. Tech is in a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of tech in cars too, but at the same time, it's like there those opportunities, those areas of the industry, like what Mike is saying, they are not tied up in like the FANG world. They're not tied up in the tech world. Like, if Microsoft was like, like everybody stop using monitors, they'd be like, well, we need monitors and we're in the healthcare sector. So we're going to keep using monitors. Like, and I mean monitors, not like health monitors. I mean, literally like monitors as in screens that you look at, like little TVs. Like if, and then if all the tech companies are like, screens are done. No one uses screens. It's over. It's like, well, I need to see my patient's data, so I'm gonna, hire someone that can fix screens. But like that's how they think. Like they're not like, my God, Microsoft told us not to you have to use this. Like they don't care about that. They're not into like they're like Web3, like, look at all this stuff you can do Web3. They're like, does it check if the person's alive? Like, Like, but seriously, like that's such a silly thing to say, but it's true. And so many industries are like that. Golf courses, like I mentioned, take it out of the severity of healthcare. Golf courses, they need something to book their tee times at the end of the day. The tech that they use now are like web apps and things like that. The tech that they used 10 years ago and still use today are for telephones. The tech they used before that, you had to walk in and friggin' ask them. You know what I mean? There's always been tech there. They're not going to worry about Microsoft calling them up, or like, they're not going to be like, like go into their Google News app, sort by technology, and be like, that's it, boys. Like Roku said, don't use HDMI anymore. All our TVs in our sports bar that's in the clubhouse, take those HDMIs out. We're going back to like RCA, like VGA, whatever you want to call them, cables, like the older cables. And it's like, no, like their business is not to meddle in tech, but those businesses need techs. And that's like one of the great things about tech is that you can get into a bunch of stuff. Like I was just literally just today having a conversation with a friend about how like annoying one of the platforms that we use to book times is, because it's so friggin' buggy, so buggy, and to be honest, it looks awful. It works, but it's not good. And like he was like, "Well, how would you improve it?" And we just had this like huge conversation about it. And I was like, "We just talked about tech for like 20 minutes, and it's like we're talking about golf technically, right?" But the whole point is that that's a real thing. Like somebody could hire me to make those improvements. And because like I have like a bit of that split, like, understanding, it's something that I could do. And actually this like that leads nicely, like it wasn't meant to be a segue, but it actually leads nicely into something that tech people can do. And it actually builds off something Mike said, where you were saying, Mike, like, you're kind of expected to work all the time, which is something that pisses me off. However, the point is you can work kind of anywhere, and this allows you to build yourself some recession safety nets in the form of side hustles, freelancing, smart market targets, things like that, which I'll talk about in a minute. So, like, for example, like if you want to build products of your own, you can. Like you can go home. Like I could start right now. Like we could get off this podcast. My work's done for the day, let's say, and I could literally just start immediately coding up a better way to book tea times. I can start that business, right? Now, yes, it's a full business, and people say, "Oh, low chance of success, this and that." But but there's people also complaining about a low chance of success of getting the tech jobs you're applying for, right? So it's almost like, you know what? Like this is one of those positions where, like, if I'm a welder, I need a whole welding shop and everything. Like I might be able to weld at home, but it takes a lot to do that. If I'm a person who is a car mechanic, I have to have a shop in order to work like at home. For us, it's literally like, oh, I have no tech at home. Go to Best Buy, buy a laptop. It's over. I can start making that tea time thing. Like it's much simpler, right? And I'm not saying it's necessarily cheap. I know that's going to be someone's argument. Well, it costs money to do that. So does everything. It also costs you money, like just applying to jobs all the time and not making any money. Like that's costing you money. You're not being paid per hour for that, right? Like effectively it's costing you value, it's costing you time. And so this is one of the very few industries where we can, and there are others, but where we can say, let's be innovative here. We're in a recession. Maybe we haven't even been laid off yet. We think we may get laid off. Let's take a look. Let's try to like spin up some side hustles. Let's try to do some stuff. And here's another weird one. Let's say it's more than a tech recession. It's a global recession. It's a local recession, right? Like a regional recession rather. Well, more people not in tech are likely going to turn to the internet for work. People, I guarantee, will start Googling how to make money online. If they see e-commerce, they're gonna be like, I think I can do that. I can sell car parts. I know all about car parts, and I can sell car parts. How do I sell this online? Who do they call? The web devs. They call the web dev agencies. So there's opportunities there where you can be like, hey, I'm going to be a freelancer here, right? I'm going to pick up some gigs here. Think about something like, maybe you're not even doing something as big as someone's full e-commerce store. Like think about some freelance gigs or like very targeted industries. Like you're doing what I call the smart market targets. Like think about this. Like it's tough times, but like businesses still need like support from tech. So you might be able to go to them and say, hey man, like I'm not going to work for you for more than a day, but I see that you're trying to like run some big event. Your landing page is garbage. Can I help you with that? Or you go to like maybe it's local or maybe it isn't, but you go to like someone's e-commerce website because they are just getting started. You notice some issues. and you can send them a message and say, "Hey, man, just let this website has like a security problem or it's clunky, the UX is bad. For some reason, I can't buy this one particular product. It just gives me a generic error. I'm very, I know this stuff inside and out. I'm very experienced in it. I can, may I help you?" And they may come back and say, "I can't pay you full time." It's like, "Don't worry about it. Like, let's just do an hourly deal. Let's get 6, 7 hours of work in, get paid, a little bit of a gig, and there you go." And like, is that a career fixer? No. But the point is like it's something you can put on your resume. It's something you can put on your socials, especially your LinkedIn. Hey, I fixed this guy's thing, whatever. And like that keeps the money flowing. I mean, many people will turn to like Ubering, right? Oh, I got laid off, or there's just a slow time at work, like it's normal, whatever. I'll start being an Uber driver. I'll start being a DoorDash driver. We have the option to do gigs just like that. Obviously not driving, but we can do gigs like this. Many people that listen to this show have contacted us and said that they've made websites for local businesses and gone to those businesses, and it doesn't always go well, but there's been a few successes, and we don't have a huge sample size. So there's probably thousands of people doing it, right? In the US alone, because many of the people were in the US. One person was in Australia, in fact, during COVID. That literally this person like made a whole thing for a business during COVID, and the business, I'm not going to say any details, but the whole point is like the business literally said to them, "We wanted to do this, but we're so busy dealing with all the COVID regulations and all the craziness and whatever in their particular industry, we didn't have time to deal with this. You've already built us a new website. Can you be our web guy?" And he was their web guy for like 6 months. There you go, right? And that's all just from, making some observations, taking some risks. And this is not perfect, right? Like people are going to say, "Oh, Matt, you have a utopian view." Maybe, like maybe it's a bit utopian, but at the same time, like you have to take some shots out there, right? Like you have to be adaptable, and you have to take a look and find issues and try to solve them. Like how many times have we said we're solutions architects?
It's absolutely the case, and I think there's many other things you can do to like have a little bit of a recession safety net essentially, and you can even do it during work. This is one key thing is like this isn't about like just people being laid off. This is about, hey, you're in a job, you're a little bit scared of where the market is heading, right?
Hmm.
You can take these steps while you're working in moderation, because you can't, you don't want to burn yourself out by working like multiple jobs. You want to do things on the side, literally after work hours and stuff like that. But you can take these steps to make it so that it's a little bit easier for you to, if the worst were to happen and you be laid off, for you to take that next step and find another job really like faster, right? And Matt brought up some good things like building products on your own. That's really good for your resume, stuff like that, and that's really good. You might make some contacts there too. Like I think the main one that I want to point out is networking. The main way you're
Yep.
going to find your next job right now, and everyone that I've talked to, isn't like cold calling or like cold, automatically submitting your resume on LinkedIn, whatever that button is. It's going to be talking to a friend and being like, "Hey, I'm looking for a job." And maybe it's not a friend, maybe it's just someone you met at a conference, maybe it's someone you met on a meetup, maybe it's something you can post on LinkedIn, but you have a good network. Like finding the people around you that are interested in the things that you are in web development space, and then being an active member in that community and being a good member in that community. Just finding them is one step, like a very, very small step. The big step is like you want to stand out in that community, right? Like I think Theo says it a lot, where if you go to his community and you contribute and you're a good person, you're not over, going crazy in there, a lot of times he'll give you a reference and stuff like that. And so like that applies to a lot of different communities out there, right? Like if you're just a good developer, you go to these communities, you participate, you help out, there's a good chance that when you're the one that needs help, if you've already helped out during that time, you're probably going to get a helping hand, right? Like if that's just how the world has worked. As long as you're the willing to give something back, then you might get something in return. It's not a guarantee, but again, you're just trying to hedge your bets. So networking, I would highly recommend doing while you have a job, or if you don't have a job, especially networking is super important, and potentially leveling up your skills a little bit. So we're looking at the industry right now. If you're stuck working on like an old Angular project at work, which is very common, or like even before Angular, like non-framework related stuff, it might make sense. Like, hey, the economy is going this way, the industry is going this way. Maybe it makes sense. I haven't updated my skills in 10 years. Go and try to build something in a different language, go and try to build something in something more popular, something that has a lot of, job listings in your area, just so you can have that experience before you have to dive fully into it and potentially, right? So there's a lot of things you can do to make yourself a little bit more recession proof. And I think doing nothing is the thing that will kill you. Doing at least trying to do some of these things. I'm not saying, again, don't overload yourself. That's really important out of all this. Don't make it so that like you go home every day and you're like, okay, I'm starting my second job of like trying to network and build stuff and stuff like that. You need to have balance here, right? Like you can only do as much as you can do. If you're someone that can grind it out, okay, grind it out. It doesn't bother you, sure. But most people need a little bit of balance. So, you can still game, you can still hang out with family and stuff like that. Just find those times to do that next extra step.
Well, I think the thing ultimately what we're talking about as well is like really, it really is like kind of taking an initiative, at the end of the day, but it's also not doing the cookie cutter bare minimum. Like just applying to jobs is the cookie cutter bare minimum. However, like I'm not saying that's easy. Like it's grueling, it's boring, it sucks. We've done it. I hate it. I think you hate it as well. And it's also needed. Totally understand. It can burn you out, whatever. Totally understand that. I just think that if that isn't working for you, then I agree with Mike. Maybe some community building, joining things, trying stuff out, making your own apps, whether they're money or not, whether they're just dummy apps where you're like, I'm going to just mess around with this and whatever. I mean, but I want to say this is before social media was as big as it is, and it was still pretty big. But Mike, like you remember, there was a few people from our program in college, not university. In Canada, it's a little different because, like, well, in America they have universities, but it's like college is like a university or
Community
something.
college, you could kind of equate community college to colleges here. It's similar because credits can transfer over from community college, credits can transfer over from our colleges here and stuff like that. So it's not quite the same,
Okay,
like it's a
okay.
little bit different, but it's similar enough.
Like basically, what we were told, like very very rough, is like college here is hands on, and universities are theory. That's roughly what we've been told, and that's a really wide berth or
Mm.
whatever. I absolutely forgot what I was going to say
I
about
think you were
that.
going to talk about how the people in our class actually did some extra stuff and got
Yes,
jobs
yeah,
at a
that's
fan
right.
company. Yeah.
Yeah, they got a job at a fan company, and quite literally, they like posted it on like Blogspot or something, like just some random blog. They was like, I made this like 3D array of like lights and just like random because we were doing like computer hardware and like a bit of computer software that controlled the hardware and things. And they were making like little circuits. They were making like cubes that would like glow and LEDs and stuff and other things. And I don't know all their projects, but the point of the matter is they were hired at a fan company, and that was supposed to be impossible. It was supposed to be like, no, no, you're supposed to go to university for that and get like a really big degree and do really well and all this. And it was just like these people were like not poached, but they were kind of poached like right out of college. It was like, you come on, let's get over. Like, we'll relocate you. We'll do this and that. We'll put you in whatever office. This is the team that you should be in, and bing bang boom, and there you go. And like that's before there was a lot of social media, like Instagram and stuff was around, but like Instagram was still like playing around. Like it was like Facebook didn't own them yet. It was very much just sort of like you're just kind of like, hey, look, I made this picture black and white that was once color. Like that legitimately was Instagram back in the day. And like they used the tools around to network online and they got something. And I'm sure I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine that they put in regular resumes at job applications, but this other thing worked out. It's just like if the job application stuff isn't working, you can do these other things. Like you're not stuck, is my
Yeah,
point,
absolutely.
right? Because I hear these people that are like, I applied to 2,000 jobs. It's like, okay, you need to slow the roll. Even if you did that, slow the roll. This isn't working. So maybe keep doing it. Totally understand it. However, maybe you should try something else as well.
Yeah. I always find those statements absolutely ridiculous. Like I can't even imagine what my mental state would be after applying to 500 jobs. Like
Oh, those people are like usually mega
yeah, like they're
angry.
done.
Like,
And you could usually like the thing is that when you're at that point, even when you're applying, you're probably putting passive aggressive shit into your application. And so like it's just not helping anyone. It's definitely not helping you. It's not helping the employer. It's not helping anyone that you're at the point where
Right.
you're like so pissed off. And they'll probably come back at this and be like, no, 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 I was perfect. All my applications were perfect. My resume was perfect. And I'll be like, no, it's bullshit. Like you can't apply to 2,000 places unless you're applying for irrelevant work and not get a call back or like, an interview or whatever. Like there's something wrong in
You've
that process.
accidentally being applied to welding positions as a
Yeah,
web
maybe
developer.
maybe in that particular case you can, but, like, okay, so regardless, like, those massive amounts of applications just doesn't make any sense to me. Having a reasonable amount 100% makes sense to me. The other thing is, like, just wanted to kinda cycle back on those two guys that made it out of our college into a FANG company right away. They weren't the best students by any means, shape, or like, they did not really care about college. They were just there to do their thing, and, that's what you're supposed to do kinda thing, but most of their work was on the side, and I don't want to, like, promote that so much, being like, don't care about your education. Like they were doing enough to pass and get like decent marks. Let me be clear there. They were just doing like, pretty much bare minimum to be like okay in the class. But most of their time was spent on these other side projects from my understanding. And that to me makes sense when you're going through school, like when you're already made it to college and stuff like that. Like unless you're trying to be the top 3 in the class or something like that and have that distinction for you, spending more time trying to do the extracurriculars and build your portfolio and try this crazy shit and post about it. If you're in school, I like that strategy. I just want to say that too. Like if you want to recession proof yourself while you're getting an education, it's not a bad idea to build something while you're in college, whether it be like a small startup, whether it be just building random crap that you're interested in. It doesn't have to be anything big, but if it's somewhat interesting and you can make people interested in it, that's going to give you a huge leg up when you're applying for jobs. Because again, the idea that graduating and then immediately applying for jobs, unless you're in a top tier school like a Waterloo in Canada or a Stanford, MIT in the US, it's becoming harder and harder, right, for a regular school person to graduate computer science or whatever, computer engineering, and just immediately go work. A lot of times it really comes back to your network and your portfolio. And it's unfortunate because the degrees are freaking hard. And you're like, oh, I should be good now. I should be able to get into to work. But the reality is like, you haven't proved anything. You've proved that you can learn, which is good. But a lot of times what companies are looking for is someone that can ship and someone that can come in and be productive. And you haven't proven that at all. If you can't code, and a lot of people graduate can't code, it's not going to work out probably. So there was a good lesson there for me looking at how they approached college that I might have, if I go back, I might have done a similar path.
I think the thing too is like you're when you go to school forever, like when you're in school for like public school, middle school if you have it, high school, and then you go to post secondary, or even if you take a year off or two, whatever, and then you go to post secondary, you're still very institutionalized. And when that happens, like you strive for those grades. Like those grades are like kind of everything. You're like, oh my God, I have to get, perfect grades. I have to get 80 and above, I have to get an A and above, whatever. I have to get these like amazing grades. And like that's I mean, I can't remember the grades that I got now. Like there's a few exceptions, like there's like a meme I have with a couple friends kind of thing where like I got like a stupidly good grade on like some essay in like grade 12, but it's like a stupid joke we talk about because like some other crap happened around. I'm not going to get into the whole high school drama, but the whole thing is like I don't remember like how hard did I push in like a random robotics class or something. All of us really. And then it's just like I don't remember what I got. Like it's like the instant you got the grade, you just moved on, and like that's kind of what can happen. And like getting the grades is important to be fair. Like for us, we did get co-ops based on our grades. Like we had co-ops that were partnered with our college, and then you get to work in the field. And I would say learned a lot more working at my co-op than I did in the school, but I got my co-op because I had good grades. So like there's definitely good reasons for it and all this. However, like school, even if it is hands-on, a lot of like people will come out of school with that institutionalized vision of like I have to get amazing grades. I have to just like start applying. Like they're kind of like doing like question answer, following instructions. Like if I need a job, I must send in job applications to people, right? And they don't have like that real world like resiliency where it's like, hey, we got problems. The business is blowing up here. Doesn't even matter whether it's tech or not. We got stuff happening here. We got customers to serve. We got enter an issue here. We got to solve these issues. When you're just like, yes, but what's the procedure for that? And some people will get like super bogged down in that sort of like really specific, like again, institutionalized thing. Cause like school is very structured, is my point. Like question, answer, here's your grades, here's your hands-on stuff. We're partnered with these people. Go get a job, from our job market, like handling thing. Go talk to our guidance counselors and they'll talk to those businesses for you. Like it's very institutionalized. It's very like it's an echo chamber. It's an echo chamber, really. But then when you get into the field and it's like our email servers are down and all we rely on is email, you're not like, what's step one in preparing our email? In school they would tell you what that is. They're just like, I don't know, check the server. And it's like, uh-oh. And then you run around like a dang fool, right? And so I feel like some people have like that real world either intuition or they've literally been exposed to it, right? Depending on whenever they went to university and college, and then at that point they're kind of like a go getter, whatever. They don't care necessarily about the grade; they care about the paper at the end, right? Where some people will strive for the honors and things like that, and whatever, you can do that. I'm not saying that's bad, but like Mike's right in that like it's cool that I was on the honor list, but like, am I gonna go tell my neighbor about it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, who am I going to tell about that? Unless it's another academic, right? But then academics stay institutionalized. They usually stay in the colleges and universities and work in them. So it's a different thing, right? If you want to work in the real world, it's a different thing than being institutionalized your whole life. And I think that's ultimately what we're talking about here. And I just want to touch on this. We've kind of touched on this. This is kind of like a thing here. Try to seize opportunities during economic downturns. Like, just to kind of get back to the episode here, there's going to be a rise of online work generally whenever there's a huge, like if there's like a massive economic downturn, again, people are going to be like, how do I make money online? How do I start businesses online? Or there's just been a rise in online work because people are interested in it. Online stuff is kind of new. Millennials, I think, are like really entrepreneurial. And I think Gen Z is actually rather entrepreneurial as well. And like a lot of people will start side hustles that are not in tech, to be clear. Like they might be a beautician and they're like, I want to start a beauty business. How do I start that online? Right. And like they're not going to be necessarily like someone who's like us. And we actually have a recent episode talking about how, like, we support a lot of industries that we don't understand. Like we used to work for like a milling place that made like bird food. Like I don't know anything about milling. Like, I have no idea. I just like, does your Twitter button lead you to Twitter? Like that was my contribution. But the point of the point of the matter is like, try to seize opportunities during these economic downturns. Like people who are displaced may turn to freelancing. You may be able to support them. Like if they're like, I'm going to do, beautician lessons over Zoom. Can you please be my tech guy? Boom, there you go. I'm going to start writing blog posts about birds. I'm a bird expert. I want to have a bird website. How do I do? Again, small online businesses start to spawn from interactions like that. You may get part-time or even full-time work yourself from things like that. And developers really ultimately are the support here. Like they can be the ones that support and offer services off like what I've been saying, but also offer things like not direct. Like some of these people might be a little tech savvy, right? They're not technical super, but like not super techie, but they're technical enough. And they may go, I can get WordPress running. Well, maybe you can be the one that makes the WordPress template that they buy. So you can support this wave. There's many, many types of opportunities. And when I was doing a little bit of research for this episode, there's a website called bewire.ca, and they point out that businesses that build recession-proof e-commerce operations can survive and even thrive during economic downturns. So, hearing that is like, obviously that's true, but then other businesses may hear that and go, let's get our e-commerce up and running. And then they don't know how to do it and they call you. So getting maybe into the e-commerce space, and then that's remote stuff. Right? Like a lot of that work is going to be remote. So even if you have a local recession issue, maybe you can get a job there. E-commerce seems to be a bit recession proof. Obviously, e-commerce needs developers. Even if it's like, oh, but all the people are using the no-code tools, then make plugins for the no-code tools. We know somebody, friend of the show, David Lindahl, he does a whole bunch of business with Shopify. He's a Shopify developer now. And like that's an example of that. He sees the opportunity. He's like, I use he has a side hustle, Rainier Watch. And like, he sells clothes and things like that. He has an e-commerce business through that. He uses Shopify. He's also a developer. So he knows about clothes. He knows about all that stuff. And he also sees the issues with Shopify as a platform. He knows that other people are going to have those same issues, and he's now offering services as a developer to help people. That's an example of, like, trying to seize an opportunity. He was laid off once or twice, and we had him on the show after one or two of them. And I mean, like, he didn't say like, "Oh, that's it. Like, I just go to apply to 900 jobs." He's like, "I know all this stuff. I'm going to start doing this," and that's what he's doing.
I think a really good kind of analogy for this is the gold rush, right? Now, this a little bit reversed because we're talking about recessions, but it's a similar kind of thing. When there's a direction that a place is going, like the gold rush, so a lot of people are going to try to mine gold. The people that are making the most money aren't the people mining the gold. It's the people that are facilitating that mining in some way, shape, or form, right? Selling land rights, selling pickaxes, selling tools to mine. Those people are making way more money than the people that are actually going to mine the gold. And if you follow that same logic across the industries, like you can see that happening right now in web development, where companies like Vercel, right, they're not really developing. Well, they are developing internally, but they're not developing directly. They're giving tools to developers, right? Like they're creating the pickaxes, and they're now seeking an $8 billion valuation for just selling the tools, right?
Yeah.
And like that's just one really large example, but there's tons of mini examples like that too. Like when you're in a recession, stuff has to adapt. The government has to do something like different, right? Like they have to get people to sign up for forums, for example, online to get some, accommodations or something like that. You can help people do that in some way, shape, or form. Maybe there's an automated process. Maybe there's tooling that you can develop to make it easier. Find different facilities, find different ways to help people achieve whatever direction that they need to go into when there's especially a big rush to it, right? Like a lot of people made a lot of money selling courses to developers during the COVID boom because, again, they were selling the tool for people to get into the industry. And
Yeah.
like they made a ton of money doing that, right? Like that's just how it was. And it's just finding those passes hard. I'm not saying it's super easy to find, like to be preemptive and know where to, provide your services. But as a web developer, you have a lot of services to provide. Like you can create an app. You can provide a service as just being the person that creates something for them. You can help them troubleshoot. You can help them maintain. Like there's a million different things you can do. You just have to find that direction of where you need to go to provide that tool in the rush.
Well, I mean, Mike, like you and I, like we'll talk about an opportunity that we may be seizing relatively soon. And like I use, so like, well, actually, I'll give a broader example. So WordPress is your blogging platform. People started using it for websites to make websites easier to make for people. People started using CPT UI, which is custom post type UI, and they also started using another plugin called ACF, or Advanced Custom Fields. So Advanced Custom Fields eventually updates, and now they allow you to create custom post types in there. So many people have dropped CPT UI, right? And so they just use this ACF thing. The point of the matter is these are not the creators of WordPress. They saw an opportunity where people were using WordPress to make these websites, and it was a pain to not have custom post types. That it was mainly out of the box a blogging platform, right? So they see this opportunity and they go, "All right, sick. Let's offer this easy way." I use that like crazy. Here's where the opportunity comes in. I'm not going to disclose what I'm trying to fix right now, but like there, I found an issue there, not like a glitch, like something where I think there's been like an oversight. Well, I found out that I want to make a plugin based on that experience, and I actually found out from that through my research that there's a competitor in the space. The competitor in the space is charging $15 a month to fix this small random issue. I wasn't going to charge that. And my thing is it's just like, holy, like, what's going on? I think there might be like an $8 plan too. We're talking $8 American though. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, this is wild. Like, this is such a small thing. This is a open source platform with a free and or pro level plugin that plugs into this thing. And then I'm trying to solve another problem in between them. And there's also a page builder involved as well, which is another whole friggin' experience. The point of my matter, the thing I'm trying to make is that like that's something that like it's not. I'm not like in desperate need of money right now, so I'm not like clamoring for that. However, like that is something that is I'd like to solve, not only for me, but once I do that, it's like, hey, should we sell this, and try to compete with this other people? Can we offer more things? Can we offer it for cheaper? Like, how do you compete? The point is, though, is if someone is charging $8 to $15 and has had the plugin maintained for a long time. The one I'm talking about, the one I'm looking at, the competitor, the competing one. They've had that thing, and like when I checked it last, it was like updated like 4 days ago or something. They've been keeping that thing up to date. Someone's not doing that for free, chances are. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's some cases of that, but someone's not doing that for free. And that's also not a huge app that gets a ton of like attention. I've never even heard of it. And it's like, you're charging $15 a month? Like, that's pretty good. So I know it's a small thing. The point is that's a random opportunity that I may seize. Of a sea of opportunities that Mike and I have talked about over the years, like over like the last like 10 years or whatever. Like Mike and I have probably talked about like 1,000 ideas. Have we seized them all? No. Point is, someone could have seized every single one of those things. Some of them are probably dumb.
Most of them are probably dumb, yeah.
To be fair, a bunch of them might be dumb, right? We also goof off sometimes, like we're friends, we talk and stuff. But the point is many of them are not dumb, and many of them people could seize. And in fact, they have if there's competitors.
Absolutely.
I think that's it. That's really it. I have some specific perspectives that I pulled from a couple of Reddit communities that I'm going to leave in the show notes there, so you can, go ahead and read those. I'm going to leave those in the show notes. I put also some key takeaways in there as well, just to sort of summarize the episode if you're reading through the show notes, and a big old list of links. So I pulled from an article for some of this, a website called Geeks for Geeks, also that Be Wired episode, or that Be Wired website as well. And I also pulled from 3 separate Reddit threads that will also be credited, of course, in the links section on htmlthethings.com in this episode's show notes. Now, Mike, I guess it's time to run the old conclusion, unless you have anything else to add.
No, I do not. Runner up.
Alrighty, well, if you'd like to support episodes like this, you can do so by visiting our Patreon. That's patreon.com/htmlallthethings. And many thanks to our $3 tier patrons: Tim from the Web Hacker on thewebhacker.com, Jason from Geek Life Radio via geekliferadio.com, Garrett Segal, Level Up Financial Planning via www.levelupfinancialplanning.com, Magnus from YesWeb via yesweb.se, Syntaxify from the HTML All the Things Discord server, and Stacy Mosteler from the website swoonworthydesigns.com. And just a reminder that we are powered by Code Rabbit. You can go and get yourself some AI code reviews to help cut code review time and bugs in half. Go to their websites. You can use our link in the show description or in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. And you can do that to nab yourself a 14-day free trial, no credit card needed, and a 2-click sign up if you use a GitHub or a GitLab account. And remember that you can also get some good old-fashioned technology education. I don't know why I said it that way. From Scrimba. That's Scrimba. I can't even say it. Using our link. I'm serious now. It's traditional education. Quiet down now. It's scrimba.com/link/HTML all the things. You could use their interactive media player code editor. Learn about a whole bunch of different topics, including full stack development now. Learn from a whole bunch of different instructors. Pause what the instructor's doing. Play with the code live. Pretty cool if you like to have some hands-on learning. And last but not least, we'd like to give a shout out to Michael LaRocca, contributing author on htmlthethings.com. Michael is the author of Self-Taught the X Generation blog at selftaughttxg.com. Feel free to leave a comment or review on the platform that you are listening to this on, and we are signing off.
You've been listening to HTML All the Things podcast. Web development, web design, and small business. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we hope you appreciate that we talk to you like human beings. And we hope you had some fun. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on social media. On Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon at HTML All the Things. And on Twitter at HTML Everything. Until next time, this is HTML All the Things, signing off.